Welcome to the Pinning Combination Podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher, alongside Wyatt, Schultz, and Dick Briggs, back after being at the Jefferson Jayhawk last week at this time. So we're glad weather has cooperated, so we're back on our normal schedule with everything. And as pointed out in the college edition, we have our pennant. We are big time, folks. The Pinning Combination has the pennant here in our studio. And that's thanks to you guys for watching and tuning in every week. So we really appreciate it. Love talking wrestling and giving you guys an opportunity to watch that every week. And which something that's become kind of a favorite segment of the Pinning Combination podcast that Coach Briggs introduced a little while ago.
I have had some comments on it, so that's been fun.
Yeah.
So
you make the call.
To tag on to this, kudos also and thank you to you, to Nathan, and to the Gazette, and to JR and everyone. So for letting you and me
do this,
right?
Yeah,
exactly. All right. So here it is. You make the call right here.
And
all right.
You know, that's why I don't officiate, because I always get these wrong. So
well, we'll see. You might have this one. Might be a little tricky. We'll see. I don't know. It's going to make you think.
Well, yeah,
okay.
You should have given me an update here.
But it's a true false. No, it's no cheating. Okay.
I
It's
got
true
a 50-50
false.
shot.
That's right. In the case of a head injury or a neck injury, the referee has the authority to change the time from 1:30, a minute and a half, to 5 minutes in high school.
So head or neck injury.
If the kid comes out and the ref starts injury time. That's a minute and a half. And now he sees that there's a head and neck injury. Does he have the authority to change it to 5 minutes?
I'm going to say true.
I'm going to say false because I don't think it's 5 minutes. And here's my reasoning. I think with concussion protocol, I know in college you have an endless amount of time to be able to recover from what might be a concussion. Not that you would recover from a concussion, but to determine whether or not you can return. You have an endless amount of time. I mean, I think one year at the Midlands that happened and they pulled guys off the mat. And they went all the way back to the locker room, and it was about 15, 20 minutes later before things came up. So I'm going to say false that they actually have if it's a head injury that they can, in lumping a neck injury in it with it, that they can actually expand that beyond 5 minutes.
Okay, here we go. Ready for all this? It is false. But it's false for a different reason.
I don't care. I still get credit.
Well, let me explain.
I'm going to start coming in after this segment instead of before.
Let me explain it. So evidently, all you have to do is go opposite of it.
Yeah.
So let me explain it. The referee does not have the authority to change it to a 5 minute recovery time or evaluation time. Only a licensed medical professional.
Now, see,
it could be a doctor. It could be a trainer.
He could consult with the trainer and change it.
It's solely on the medical, and it can't be someone out of the crowd.
Right.
It has to be someone that is the designated medical person. So basically, it can be a trainer, it can be a doctor that's designated ahead of time. So, as an official, you always want to make sure that the teams, and you announce that at the weigh-ins and that sort of thing, with your pre-meet talk, is there a certified medical professional, and then the teams will know that. So, but yes, once that trainer, generally a trainer, right, would say, yeah, I need more time to evaluate it, then you'll go into concussion. They don't really call it concussion protocol like they do in college, but it's the same signal, and it's basically the same thing. So it's a little bit tricky there. I kind of messed you up.
So you can increase it.
You
or
can,
she
or
the
he,
medical.
Yeah. But
the official.
I don't have the authority as an official to advance that. It has to be that medical professional.
And my thinking was that you would consult with the medical in order that he would actually make the final decision, not her. Was my
right. And so then, if it is after 5 minutes they determine that they can continue. Then you stop it, but you have to have that person write it out and say they have my permission or authority to continue. So
Because I've been at
It's gonna end up being one
I've been
file.
at tournaments where they've asked me for the paper so that they could write that out. So
right, yeah.
Now here's a question: Does that have to be initiated by the medical person, or could the official go notice that they're doing that, and if the medical professional forgets to say, "Hey, we've got."
I would ask, do you need more time to evaluate?
Okay,
that?
so you
There's gonna be
can go.
communication, yeah.
Okay, so you can.
so I'm
are
kind
you-
of right.
No.
Oh,
But the official does not have the authority.
oh,
That was the key word, authority.
Right.
So
So it's got to come from the medical.
Yeah.
I'm still taking credit for it because I said
you got it.
I said it was false.
True, false. All you had to
Even
do is
though
circle
I was
that
on the
false,
wrong, it's not algebra. My process to the right answer was wrong.
or trig. Was
They're
it?
tricked, yeah. Now we know
Long
why
story.
I dropped it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll jump into this weekend's last weekend's action. Finally, we've had prep action on a Saturday.
Well, actually, you mentioned it on Monday. Kudos to Chris Deem for thinking outside the box
Yep.
and moving from Saturday to Monday, and all the 16 teams that came into the Jayhawk
and I actually thought it worked out well.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. It wasn't the original teams, or at least all the
there
original
were 4
teams.
additional ones. I think.
But it created, to me, a nice little mix for that Monday tournament.
And it's tough on a Monday on the wrestlers that have to make weight. That's tough. I mean, especially in public schools in Cedar Rapids, you can't practice on Sunday. Maybe they got special permission or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's still tough.
Blake Williams had mentioned because of the weather and stuff, they didn't practice on Friday, didn't practice on Saturday.
But got Sunday, yeah.
I
think that's probably the case. In a lot
Yeah,
of
so that's tough, especially if you're cutting a bit.
And they had actually asked for a weight allowance on a Monday because of and
State
that was
wouldn't
turned
grant
down.
it.
Yeah.
Really?
So
Yeah. And there was
so
kids
you
that
had
were-
to make weight.
right, and there was kids not making weight. I know Jefferson had quite a few, and there was some other schools. I obviously was at weigh-in as an official there, but there were other kids that weren't making it. So
Well, let's touch on that really quick because because of the goofy schedule last week, we weren't able to get things ironed out. Was it Pleasant Valley came away with a team title, topping Hempstead there. One of the things that I thought was kind of interesting, Solon showed up, and kind of a neat situation where Darryl Long, the head coach at North Cedar, a former Jefferson wrestler under Coach Briggs, I think a state runner-up for you, brought 3 of his North Cedar wrestlers to Jefferson to compete, and they went 1, 2, and 6, which was pretty interesting. Tyler Thurston won at 195, and then Brody, I think it's Brody or Brock, I think it's Brody Hawtrey, was second at 145 to Hayden Taylor, which a lot of people are going to get second to Hayden Taylor, by the way, but kind of neat, a neat situation there. And I think Thurston was actually the Guerrerian winner.
Yep. Pinned his way through, or at least had four
pins,
5 minutes and 9 seconds. So kind of
and speaking of North Cedar, that Monday tournament gave them an opportunity to wrestle in something that they normally wouldn't have, to meet different kids.
They were going to be at the Solon tournament, the Haydenfeld, and so I know obviously Solon and North Cedar. I don't think anyone else came from that tournament, but good. Anyway, kudos. So on to Saturday.
So
which made it tough because you had a Monday, Thursday, Saturday weigh-ins for those 16 teams, but at least they got competition. So
right. So at the Lueders Invitational in Clinton, my first trip down there, really impressed, and I'd have to say kudos to tournament organizers. Certainly very accommodating. A lot of times you may not have a place to set up. Certainly, rarely do you get a chance to actually stay in the gym and write. Usually I'm trying to find some place or even writing from the front seat of my car, hoping my laptop battery lasts. But thank you to the folks at Clinton for allowing me to stay in the gym and finish everything right there before heading out of town. So
Yeah, I've done that now like 3 or 4 years, and they have been super accommodating to me. So, you know, you were really pleased, but it's just the norm.
Sure.
I mean, it's just the way they do it down there.
And I haven't been to Clinton since I was a senior in high school and wrestled Bob Lueders' son.
really,
Yeah.
kind of a small world.
JD,
Jeff.
Jeff,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, so some real good competition there, but of course, Lisbon, kind of head and shoulders. 10 wrestlers into the semi, 7 in the finals, 3 champions, and they really walked away with a team title, beating Norwalk by 84 points when it was all said and done.
Yeah, three champs, 3 runner-ups. That's without their
Four
state
runners
champ.
up,
Yeah, without Robert Avila, who we'll talk about a little bit when we touch on the girls tournament.
But also, Lindmar had 3 champions, and Prairie had 3 champions.
Mm-hmm.
So, for this area,
Not bad. 9
yeah.
champs.
Yeah, and kind of an interesting thing with the tournament, they have outstanding wrestler, and then they have like an outstanding underclassman wrestler of the tournament. And of course, Lisbon swept all 3 in kind of a neat day for the Happels. Cale Happel was co-outstanding wrestler with teammate Marshall Hawk.
right?
And then Quincy Happel was named the underclassman OW. Happel with a 5-4 victory. Quincy Happel with a 5-4 victory over Riley Nilo of Milton, Wisconsin, in the finals. Who impressed you during that tournament?
Noctiborn, maybe.
Sure.
Over Vederick. I think that was an injury default, though.
Yeah, but he was up 5-0 at the
right.
time.
Maybe Plummer.
Sure.
Plummer was good. And some of these not seeing a whole lot of, and maybe you see him more than I do, but I thought he was pretty impressive. And then, of course, DeGroot.
Yeah. Ashton Stoner to Groot with
right.
a battle of highly ranked guys there. 195. He
With
got a
Clark.
pin over Cole Clark. Was down 2-0. Got a takedown to tie it. It was one of those things. Really showed his power. Clark got in deep and looked like he was trying to elevate, and Stoner to Group kind of hipped in and caught him off balance, got him on his back, and then once he was able to trap that arm, transitioned into a headlock, and that was tight right
Yeah.
away. And then came away with a pin. And you could tell he was pretty pumped up about that. A nice win for him. Of course, he was joined by Austin Kegley and Johnny Washburn as those Prairie champs. Bryce Park was right there with Noctiborn and Plummer with the title at 126. And just to mention, Noctiborn had locked up a cradle and then got 3 near fall at the end of the first period, and that's when Vederick couldn't continue. So Noctiborn had really kind of
Yeah, he had that tight.
Yeah.
That was really
he was
tight.
in control and
Yeah.
and kind of dominated that first period. But Marshall Hawk against Eli Lloyd, a battle of number ones in 1A and 3A, and he came away with
9-3.
9-3 victory. I know 4 takedowns in the match. That was a match that Lloyd had won earlier in the season, and you see kind of the tide turn. Speaking of stoppages, this was a match that all kinds of blood time, right? Just nosebleed after nosebleed from Hawk, but he was able to kind of fight through, and it's kind of tough. Wrestle 10 seconds, have to stop, and but he maintained his composure. I thought that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's hard to get into the flow of things, then stop, and then you got to get into the flow of things, or at least try. And I think they even called a blood time with 1 second left.
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Yeah,
I mean, that's tough for both guys.
well,
More
but,
so with the guy bleeding,
but it also showed or told me that the official's not watching the clock, because otherwise he'd have let it run out.
Yeah, which you don't, you're not supposed to. But
Right, that's
you
what I
should,
meant.
At that point in time, unless did they have the
No,
watches? There should have been a
there was a second guy there.
yeah. No, I meant a
Towel tapper?
Towel
Yeah.
tapper, yeah. It's counting down.
But I thought Lisbon. Looked impressive even without
Robert
one of their top wrestlers. Brandon Paez wrestled very well. Kegley won in the final 7-3. The two of them apparently train in freestyle and stuff in the off season together. But Paez is definitely a nice addition to that Lisbon lineup there at 120. So, Seth Adrian from Davenport Assumption with a nice performance there. I was surprised by Norwalk. Maybe you can kind of
I was
direct
too.
me differently, but I don't see Norwalk very often, and they had some really nice performances as well.
Yeah, you got a 26. You got Harbor, who is ranked or has been, and the other kids I really don't know a whole lot about myself. More
I think they had
that
5 finalists, so I
yeah.
think they had the second most finalists.
And out of that Central Iowa, you
There
don't.
one team that wasn't at the winger.
Or the winger, yeah.
Yep.
And then Vederick, he's always been in that top 4 or 5 in the state too, as far as rankings, nice team. I did talk to the coach a little bit because I was a little curious about his background. So,
Well, I think they've had some pretty decent youth wrestling and club wrestling with Norwalk and Johnston and in that area right there.
That Central Iowa.
Yeah, in kind of western Des Moines area. So
or Western, I meant that Central Iowa. I said Western, I meant Central.
And we'll touch on the Ed Winger here in just a second, but we'll kind of mosey up north to Waverly, where they had the second Iowa Wrestling Coaches and Officials Association Girls State meet up there. Probably the biggest noteworthy part is just the participation level.
and I have some numbers for you.
Sure.
I
350.
pulled them off of track. So this year there are 330 competitors from 87 schools.
Wow.
And then they had 11 weight classes, and last year they had 10 weight classes. This year they had 6 weights that used a 64-man bracket, and the largest bracket was 49 competitors in it. And then last year the largest bracket they used was a 16-man bracket. I think they had one that had maybe 14 in it or something like that. And then the rest, there was 2 that they had 9 and one had 10. Anyway, they had 3 32-man brackets, 1 16, and the only 8-man bracket was at heavyweight, and that was full.
Yeah.
So, and then last year, like I said, they had 5 16-man brackets, 3 8-man brackets, and 2 4-man brackets. They only had 10 weight classes last year. So last year, 87 competitors, and weather was a factor last year. 87 competitors from 36 schools. So I thought that was kind of interesting to throw that out there. So.
And there are a lot of really neat stories. One, it's great to see the growth.
Very
it's
nice.
great to see that. And I think it's just going to continue to climb now that, it was always frustrating when talking to some people, how do I put this, maybe in positions of authority, because it always would come down to the chicken and the egg argument. Well, you show us that there's a need, we'll provide the opportunities. And the counter argument was always, well, we need the opportunities to be able to show you that there's a need. And it was always that chicken versus egg thing. I think this shows which side probably was more correct. I don't want to really point too many fingers and everything, but I really think that this is showing, you know what, if you give them the opportunity, they'll come.
Right.
And this is something that's not just, well, these are just high school kids coming out for the first time. A lot of these have been people that have wrestled the girls and youth
I was just
clubs. They've grown as wrestlers, and now they're just kind of coming in.
But this is a complex issue. You just can't say, okay, we now have girls wrestling because you've got. I mean, here's the complexity of it. You have the boys' union that has wrestling, the girls' union that has nothing set up to organize wrestling. So now you have to probably work together on that. I don't know how that would work out. Then you also have in the school itself. Now you have to provide coaches, which now the coaches that are doing it now are basically doing it on a volunteer basis or extra. Maybe they're the men's coach, boys coach, and I know of one coach that does it in the morning on his own with just the girls, and they come in 6 a.m. in the morning or whatever and do. And he's starting small, so I think they do it 2 or 3 times a week, and then he had girls that competed at in Waverly. But it's not an easy issue. There's so many things that you just there's the money that's going to be involved in terms of hiring coaches. You're going to have to share workout space. All those things that go along with that. So,
but also,
it's worth it. It's worth the battle. We got to do that. So,
and you're talking about the champions of this tournament. I don't know how close you guys follow, but basically all the champions are names that come up all the time. So to me they're familiar names. With Ella Schmidt, you see her around the parks out of Davenport. Chloe Clemens, Abby McIntyre.
So you see Schmidt at the parks? Did you say at the parks in
the parks out of Davenport?
Oh, parks out
Parks,
of Davenport. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
And then we actually brought up the fact about
work with me.
I get it.
Your humor.
Yeah.
The gal out of Cresco, you had brought that up on Saturday, which was interesting.
Yeah, and that goes along with some of the stories. As you kind of mentioned,
Lakin Lionheart.
Yeah, Lakin Lionheart won the 145 bracket. She's also Cresco's second leading scorer on their basketball team,
which is 13-2.
Yep. So. Wow. That was pretty impressive. The heavyweight champion from Iowa City West, Salima Omari, she's actually she was a lineman on their varsity football team this last fall as well. So she was able to win that. We talked about some of the multi champions. Millie Peach still, I interviewed her last year after the first tournament, and I asked her about kind of the future, and she had one of the most poignant comments ever about just kind of what this might mean for the future, and wrestling in Wells Fargo someday. And she goes, well, all my younger sisters wrestle, and I sure hope so. That she understood that this wasn't just about her, but the opportunities that, might follow down the road, that I thought was pretty neat as well. And to see her, Rachel Eddy from Independence, you talk about recognizing wrestling names. Eddie from Independence is one as well.
It'd be Scott Eddy's niece.
Okay, and then look at some of the other names. We talked about Heath Grimm, the coach at Upper Iowa, and I think Leah Grimm placed, and then Emma Grimm was. A runner-up to Sydney Park,
right?
From Davenport. So certainly some names that you recognize there. And then did you mention Janelle Avia from Lisbon? And that was something that was kind of interesting as well. We talked about Robert not being in attendance at the Lueders because he decided to go up and support his sister and be in her corner this weekend. Kind of a neat deal for them, for him to show that support and be there for
Yeah, he was
her.
in the corner, and when she came off, she went immediately to him, and they had a hug, and that's really cool. I think that he supported that, and they were at a tournament where Lisbon, the boys were, that they won handily by nearly 90 points, and so wasn't necessarily needed, and so it was maybe a good opportunity to do that, and I always said family comes first, so faith, family, and then team somewhere in there.
And it's tough because you'd rather probably go compete, or you want to be competing at this part of the year, and for him to sacrifice that to go up there was pretty cool.
Especially after you hadn't wrestled in 2 weeks from snow.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So 3 weekends
In a row.
off before conference.
I think
stuff,
he'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. You think. So the Ed Winger was this week as well. Wyatt, anything kind of stand out?
Believe it or not, Southeast Polk won.
Really?
Shocker.
I don't know if anything stood out real big. There was a few kids that didn't wrestle, but I guess the one that did stick out was North Scott coming in as a runner-up. I knew they had a nice, solid team all year long with guys coming in and out, injuries and so forth, but that was for that kind of a tournament. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think there were 60 ranked kids in that tournament, and so pretty solid. And to North Scott to come in second.
Right, and Southeast Polk had 223 and a half. North Scott had 165, so pretty good separation there. I know Southeast Polk had 4 champs and 2 runner-ups, and I kind of almost expected them to win by more. I don't know why.
Right.
It's just Southeast Polk, but that's pretty significant right there. I guess they've tainted me. It should be more.
and I don't know if you guys had noticed this or not, but they also sent another team out to the Eastern, and they won that tournament too.
Really?
And I'm probably guessing they had a team at Jefferson for the Haggerty duels for the
JV too.
They probably won that too. They usually have 3 teams going that this weekend. Yep. For me, Cedar Falls ended up 8th. Dylan Witt was a champion at 138, so and he's only a sophomore, so that was pretty impressive. I thought. I see that Little, the heavyweight for Bettendorf, is back in the lineup.
Well,
right, finally.
He won,
Right.
so he was a champ. He's got 8 matches under his belt. So
Yeah, I knew because I think it was a broken hand.
Yeah.
Was that
from
what it was?
football.
Yeah.
but I noticed there's some other people out of lineups for whatever reason. I have no
Right.
idea, but those that come to mind: O'Brien at Linmar. Kennedy has
I think Viss, their heavyweight was
maybe an injury of
out
some kind, or
as
he
well.
was out. Yep,
He didn't. Kennedy had a barn burner with Limar that they won in the final match last Thursday. Ben Hager came away with a win in the final match to win it. There's a couple duels for Kennedy that they've come down to the final match to win against Iowa City West and now Linmar. But yeah, Viss was out for that one, as well as O'Brien. Yeah.
Yep. So interesting there. But it's that time of the year. It's like you get banged up and beat up, and now it's getting close to the qualifiers. Sectionals or districts, and you want to get your kids healthy, so you want them in February, not January. So.
Yeah, and this week we're on to that championship season. So
Yes, that's right.
conferences
Yeah,
start.
and Southeast Polk, that 106 pounder, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, Jurasaga or whatever his name. He wasn't there either, so they
Same
actually
situation there.
Yeah.
Well, there's that difference right there. See.
So there were some kids that didn't wrestle there either. And there was a couple of weights where a couple of major upsets in that first round. Which when you're wrestling back to a 7th place on this type of a bracket, it really throws things out of whack.
Right.
But
yeah.
kind of looking at. Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we kind of got a preview of what's going to happen at the CIML.
Sure.
With
Right.
the winger, and that's it. So
Just really quickly, Iowa City High had their Clyde Bean duels this weekend as well. Dubuque Hempstead came away with a team title there, beating runner-up Iowa City High 41-28. Muscatine was third, Oskaloosa fourth, Xavier fifth, Decorah, Clear Creek, Amana, and Keokuk round out the team finish there. And this week, this is it. The championship season starts. We've got some big duels Thursday. I will be at Independence for the West Delaware Independence duel, which 1 versus 2, and then there's also a 1 versus 2 at Lisbon between the Lions and Don Bosco.
the Dons
kinda
are
going
coming
on.
down. Yeah.
Yep. So that should be fun. We'd be remiss. I know there's a lot of Lisbon talk going on, but last Thursday, Brad Smith became the all-time winningest coach in state history. Lisbon shut out East Buchanan and Mac Valley to give him 647 dual victories in his career. That puts him above Kent Kirsten of Logan Magnolia, who he was previously tied with before Thursday. So now Brad Smith, already in the Hall of Fame, has the most state championships and now the most dual victories
Right.
in state history.
And Thursday night they're having that duel with Don Bosco. So what they're actually doing is they're going to have an intermission, and they're bringing out the his first state championship team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at the intermission. Well, I think it was in 1980. Does that sound right?
Sounds about right. 79 or 80. Yep.
And so it should be a fun night. And I was just going through there. Out of the two teams, there's 19 ranked wrestlers between the two teams.
Wow.
So you can imagine some of the head-to-heads and how hot that gym is going to get.
All right, and especially with the two fan bases.
Right, that's what I meant.
Yeah. And so, to not to finish, to be done with Smith, but to add on to it, he has had his hands in on four four-time state champions. When he first got there, I was at Morningstar.
Yep.
That was in
Scott.
two state championships into it, and I think Smith did the last two, and then who was it?
Shane Light.
Shane Light, yeah, Shane Light, and then McGinnis at
City High.
City High, where he came in on the last two for McGinnis. Clyde Bean had started that, and then who's the last?
Carter Happel.
Oh, Carter, of course, yeah, Carter Happel, and then of course we've still got Kale this year, hopefully, and then Avia's down,
Is in line to
potentially
do it
in line
as
to
well.
that. Still got a long ways to go, but he's in line to do that, and now his sister.
Yeah, right. There you go.
And interesting though, I did an interview with him that I'll probably put it out tomorrow.
Okay.
But one of the questions I did ask him was the difference in styles between those four-time state
Oh, sure.
champions. Because I was kind of interested in it. He talked a little bit about Shane Light and McGinnis, kind of the differences in those two. So he touched on a couple of them. So
I would think the
thought
two
that was
most
interesting.
similar might be Happel.
Yeah.
But
just
I
a guess.
thought that was an interesting
Yeah, it's
some
neat.
comments.
For sure. So you got that big one, but the conference meets on Saturday. You've got the MVC will be held at Dubuque Hempstead. The Walmac will be at West Delaware. I believe the Tri Rivers will be held at Starmont, even though that's Lisbon and everybody else. The Northeast Iowa Conference will be held at Crestwood, and then the River Valley Conference will be held at. I just drew a blank on that one. Oh, Tipton Middle School will host the River Valley Conference.
I'm at Lone Tree with the Southeast Iowa whatever
Super
Conference,
Conference.
whatever it's called. Yeah,
SEISC.
yeah. There you go.
As well. So
And I will be headed to Mississippi Valley. I don't know where you were going to Southeast or that
Lone Tree.
Super Conference,
I will either be at the
WAMAC?
MVC or the WAMAC. But it's still waiting on where
And they're both
JR
solid.
wants me to go.
Both great tournaments.
Yep. I think the MVC is a tournament, and you guys can please chime in. I think it's really up for grabs. I mean, I think you've got, we saw Prairie and Linmar tie. Go figure. They had a duel earlier this year. Decided on criteria, and now they tie in a tournament.
Equal number of champs.
Yep. And you've got Kennedy, you've got City High, you've got Hempstead,
West.
Iowa City West that has a lot of firepower.
Cedar Falls.
Cedar Falls is sneaky.
Yeah, they might get in there. I don't know if they can win it, but
But
it's going to
but
be
it just
more
seems
exciting.
like that top half. It could be a lot of different combinations, 1 through 6.
Right, you don't have
So-
a clear cut favorite, and that'll make it more fun, I think, for everyone in the gym.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think West Delaware, looking at what they did to Williamsburg this last week, they dominated 112 of 14.
They can just stay
right?
home, right?
They have to be clear cut team favorite, but I
Right.
think the weights they're in will be really interesting to see who comes on top. You'll have some really neat matchups, especially like at 160, 170.
Right.
182 heavyweight. A lot of others.
West Delaware is a great dual meet team.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a really great tournament team, but you've got some great individuals in that conference that could water it down a little bit. So
yeah, you've got somebody like the Maquoketa kids. That Maquoketa is not going to be in the
Right.
team race, but you know what? Abraham Michael and Taven Rich are going to be guys that factor in and take points away from some of those top teams.
I would agree.
As well. Benton Community, when you got
couple kids.
you got Roos in the upper weights, and then is it Bishki?
Beachkeep Wyatt. How
know.
could you forget that?
Yeah. Well, it's the pronunciation that I was worried about.
Going
but-
back to that 170, you got the 1, 2, 3, 5 ranked kids in the state at 170.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's traditional that Walmack is always loaded.
Yep. So that'll be fun. Waverly, probably a heavy favorite in the Northeast Iowa Conference. And then, as we mentioned, Lisbon, that's probably more of a question of by how much than anything. So,
But then, they also have the CIML on Friday night this week. And you got Southeast Polk that's ranked number 2, Fort Dodge is 3rd, Waukee is 6th, Ankeny is 7th, Ankeny Centennial is 8th, and Johnston at 10th.
Wow.
That's their CIML.
yeah.
Right.
So that's going to be survival of the
And the only
fittest
one that
there.
wasn't at the winger it was Fort Dodge, I think, right? Oh, and Johnston. They were at
Right.
Lueders.
Yeah.
So they'll that'll be
That's always
I know,
it's-
it's a-
and they run it on a Friday night. It's not. Of course, it's not a true third type thing, but gets over about 11 o'clock, and
why do they do that on a Friday night?
I'm not real sure
Really?
why they do it.
Because they
I'm
can't.
not sure either.
Because they can.
Well,
Yeah, they do it in Southeast
There's
Polk
only
with
one
10
gym that
mats.
can do it, really.
Yeah, in Southeast Polk.
Yeah, they've got those 2 gyms or that gym that opens
Right.
up. And, Yep.
Interesting.
So
And then we'll be in sectional week after
isn't
that.
that crazy?
It seems like it's gone by fast.
Yep.
Yes, it has.
I should mention, I haven't been to the new Waukee. Do they have a big gym as well that will be able to host 10 mats?
Oh, their new school, you
Yeah.
mean? That I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just know their baseball, softball diamonds are probably better than some
Yeah.
Colleges.
Yep.
So, but anyway, so big weekend coming up for Preps with the conference meets, upper Iowa Conference as well.
That I don't even know where it's at.
I had it earlier. Can't quite remember, but I think that might be one MFL
Right.
might be a front runner for there as well. So, any other parting parting shots or
Good luck to all the wrestlers, coaches,
Word.
officials, and athletic administrators, and running
Yeah,
these
because we're
running
starting
these
to hit the
tournaments.
tournament
Yep.
time.
I hope you don't mind me saying this, but congratulations. You're going to be you're assigned to district meet.
Yeah,
Is it- how many?
I'll be at the sectionals at Lisbon, and the district is at Bettendorf. So
Is that your first district assignment?
it's the first for both.
Oh, okay.
Well, first of all,
Great.
but at the same time, how long have you been officiating though?
How long have I been getting paid to push?
He's been officiating since he started coaching. But
Since your coaching days, let's put it that way.
4 years, I think.
4 years.
so that'll be neat. And now I know where I'm going to go cover sectionals and districts, so I can harass one of the officials.
And it is kind of fun to do because I've done that. And you just turn around and look at you like,
You're not supposed to. You didn't let me talk. At Matt's side, you're going to get out of here. You wouldn't let me talk at D3s at Matt's side. Buddy, you're out. You're gone. And now that I have the power. I was trying to peep something out. You're not supposed to talk.
So North Fayette Valley is actually hosting the Upper Iowa Conference this Saturday as well. So congrats on that. Make sure you check out the Predicament for that interview with Lisbon coach Brad Smith that Wyatt conducted at the Bob Lueders tournament after Smith set the wins record. And make sure you check thegazette.com for our wrestling coverage and iowapreps.com. So we'll close that. Thanks for watching. Thank you for our new pennant. Make sure you tune in next week as well as we get ready for sectionals and cover this week's conference meets. And Wyatt, go ahead and close us out.
as always, let's keep wrestling on the move.